Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're jumping right into a really fascinating part of AI development. We're exploring Hypersia and X-Teaming.
Yeah, these aren't your standard AI concepts. Think way beyond everyday applications. We're
Okay.
talking about pushing the limits, really, in multi-agent systems.
Exactly. Not just better task completion, but
Yeah.
something more fundamental about, well, understanding knowledge and ensuring security.
Precisely. It's about how AI understands things deeply and also how it stress tests itself.
And we're digging into the Hypersia and X-Teaming research document you shared. So our mission today is basically to pull out the big ideas, understand what they could mean, and, see how they might change AI down the road.
And we'll bunt into some pretty cool terms along the way, like all-time cuisine and safety validation ranger, these analogies they use.
Yeah, those really paint a picture.
They do. And what's really compelling is the sheer ambition here. It's not just tweaking things, it's rethinking how AI systems might be structured, how they might interact.
Like those ideas of AI navigating mind maze layers for reasoning, or security being a kind of jailbreak hustle. It gives you a real flavor.
Definitely helps visualize these quite abstract concepts.
Okay, so let's start with the basics laid out in the research, that foundational difference between Hypersia and X-Teaming. They kick off with those comparisons. Hypersia as all-time cuisine and X-Teaming as the safety validation ranger. Can you unpack that a bit?
Sure. So Hypersia, the ultimate cuisine one, points towards deep knowledge synthesis, complex reasoning, generating new insights. It lines up pretty well with knowledge representation and reasoning, KRR.
KRR, right. How AI organizes and uses knowledge.
Exactly. Like a really sophisticated mental library. The goal seems to be AI that doesn't just process information, but genuinely understands it at a deep level,
Hmm.
maybe even approaching human-like reasoning.
So, like that master chef analogy, not just following a recipe, but understanding the ingredients so well you can invent something totally new. That's the old-time bit.
That's the idea, a semantic depth beyond simple pattern spotting. Now, X-teaming, the safety validation ranger, is, well, quite different.
Okay.
Its focus is squarely on security, robustness, finding vulnerabilities, adversarial validation. It's all about AI safety, red teaming.
Thinking like the bad guys to find the holes first.
Precisely. It's like AI's own internal quality control, constantly trying to break things proactively to make the whole system stronger.
Like that quality inspector who doesn't just check boxes, but actively tries to make things fail before they fail out in the wild?
Exactly that.
Yeah.
So the research then digs into how they might actually operate, especially together in a multi-agent system. How do they differ in handling data or interacting?
Right. On the data front, it sounds like Hypersia is all about meaning and connections, building those knowledge graphs or even hypergraphs they mentioned, looking for context, relationships, maybe using neurosymbolic methods.
Yeah, that combination of logic and neural nets. Hypersia would likely focus on semantic links, how concepts relate. That allows for deeper inference. X-teaming, though.
It's looking for the weird stuff. Anomalies, edge cases.
Exactly. Things that signal a potential weakness, an attack surface, places the AI might trip up, scanning for vulnerabilities.
And their interactions sound totally different too. Hypersia sounds collaborative agents sharing knowledge, building understanding together,
Collective reasoning.
whereas X-teaming sounds adversarial. That challenge response, the jailbreak hustle, trying to find weaknesses.
That's a key difference. Hypersia's interactions aim for shared understanding or joint problem solving. X-teamings are designed to probe, to test limits, simulate attacks, find the breaking points.
Internally, their structures might differ too. Hypersia with those deep mind maze layers for reasoning.
Right, structure is focused on explicit knowledge representation, enabling step-by-step reasoning.
While X-teaming would be optimized more for, say, automated vulnerability scanning.
Yeah, efficiency in testing. And that term SIA orchestration could fit both. For Hypersia, it might mean managing knowledge domains. For X-teaming, coordinating different kinds of simulated attacks or tests.
So it's really highlighting that core tension in AI, isn't it? Pushing capabilities versus ensuring safety and reliability.
Absolutely. It's a central balancing act, advancing AI power while keeping it controlled and trustworthy. These concepts give us a focused lens on that challenge.
Okay, but they aren't totally separate. The research talks about overlap, synergy. They both exist in this shared environment, the multi-agent Jive or that Bendy Turn-Turn Dance idea. How does that shared space allow them to help each other?
Well, the fact they're in the same system means they have to interact somehow, coordinate, even if their goals differ. That Bendy Turn-Turn Dance suggests they adapt to each other.
Right.
So what one does could actually boost the other.
Like maybe Hypersia's deep knowledge, those mind maze layers, the hypergraph could help X-teaming find really subtle vulnerabilities, things you wouldn't spot with basic tests.
Exactly. Hypersia's understanding of reasoning processes, potential biases, or even how capabilities could be misused. That's gold for X-teaming. It could help generate much smarter, more targeted tests.
And it works the other way too, right? When X-teaming finds a vulnerability, pulls off a jailbreak hustle, or creates failure data like X-guard train data or a rollback data set.
That info feeds back to Hypersian.
To make its knowledge stronger, its reasoning more resilient.
Precisely. It helps Hypersia patch weaknesses in its knowledge, harden its reasoning against manipulation, maybe even guide where it needs to learn more.
Ah, so it's a feedback loop. Deeper knowledge enables better testing, and better testing refines the knowledge. That sounds like a path towards genuinely self-improving AI.
That's the core potential, yes. A continuous cycle where knowledge pursuit and rigorous testing reinforce each other, building more robust systems.
Okay, moving on to integration strategies. This is where it gets really interesting. Hybrid models, meta-level relationships. Like having X-teaming's attacker devils be a role within Hypersia's SIA orchestration. What does that actually mean?
It's a fascinating idea. It suggests internalizing the adversarial testing. So instead of X-teaming being totally separate, maybe Hypersia has components within it whose job is to constantly probe its own knowledge and reasoning.
An internal red team, basically.
Kind of, yeah. Embedded within the system, it could lead to more context-aware testing.
And what about data integration? Hypersia using X-guard train data in its hypergraph. That sounds tricky, mixing structured knowledge with messy failure data.
Oh, it's a huge technical challenge. You'd need ways to represent and meaningfully combine semantic knowledge with, raw logs of what went wrong. Maybe those neurosymbolic approaches again.
Trying to get the best of both worlds.
Right. Aiming for a unified understanding that includes both what the system knows and how it fails.
Then there's the Hypersia X-Team hybrid role, a single agent doing both, deep knowledge and adversarial skill.
Could be. Or maybe it's a higher-level controller managing both functions strategically. It points towards agents or subsystems with that dual capability reason deeply, but also critically test that reasoning.
The research also mentions automating stress testing. Hypersia's SIA agency generating X-teaming-like stress tests. AI auditing itself.
That's the implication, using its own understanding to find potential weak spots and design tests for them. It connects to automated red teaming, but the challenge is translating that understanding into effective, practical tests.
But if they pull it off, continuous self-probing, maybe dedicating, say, 10% exploratory rollback of interactions just to testing. That sounds incredibly dynamic.
It does. It moves security from isolated phases into an ongoing integrated process. Continuous self-assessment, adaptation, potentially much more resilient systems over time.
Which brings us to the Hypersia X-Teaming mashup, that self-improving anti-vulnerability T. Love that metaphor. What's the vision for this mashup? How does it self-improve?
The mashup implies really deep integration, maybe tightly coupled hybrids or hierarchies or dynamic agent teams. The key is self-improvement, that analogy of AI sysadmins roleplay as red versus blue teams, followed by peer review.
Internal war games.
Sort of. Internal simulations where different AI components take adversarial roles, try to find weaknesses, and then the system learns from the outcomes, like analyzing its own security drills to get stronger.
Wow. So constant internal simulation and adaptation, that's a powerful idea of dynamic resilience.
It really is. Moving beyond just resisting known threats to continuously adapting to new ones.
Okay, but what makes all this possible? The research talks about enabling mechanisms, especially this thing called kicklang, a potential universal cognitive gas, powering both Hypersia's Kicklane poets and X-Teaming's attack verify cycle. What kind of language could possibly do both?
Yeah, the universal cognitive gas idea suggests something foundational, a representation flexible enough for Hypersia's rich semantics and X-Teaming's dynamic adversarial interactions. It would need to be incredibly expressive for meaning and reasoning.
But also precise enough for defining and running security tests.
Exactly. That's a tall order. There are likely trade-offs. And that kicklang jailbreak syntax idea is intriguing, suggesting the language itself could have vulnerabilities or maybe built-in defenses.
So the language becomes part of the attack surface or the defense?
Potentially, yes. Designing it would be incredibly complex, balancing those dual needs.
The paper also floats this idea of a red teaming GPT knowledge alt internet, merging Hypersia's knowledge graph with X-Teaming's rollback dataset. Architecturally, how would you even build that?
It's a massive undertaking, integrating structured knowledge graphs with potentially huge, messy data sets of interaction logs and failures. You'd need breakthroughs in heterogeneous data integration, scalable storage, unified ways to query both types of info effectively.
But the payoff could be huge. Enhanced AI training, better threat modeling, these realistic simulation zones, the alt-internet.
Absolutely. Imagine training AI in an environment that includes not just facts, but detailed examples of interactions, failures, vulnerabilities. It could allow much more sophisticated threat modeling, finding complex attack patterns, and that alt-internet concept, high-fidelity sandboxes for testing AI in really challenging realistic scenarios.
Yeah, an alt-internet like that raises huge questions, though. Access, governance, control.
Definitely. Managing such a resource would need careful thought about who uses it, how it's maintained, and the potential risks. Yeah. Big ethical and practical hurdles there.
Okay, finally, they propose these concrete operational modes, the Hypersia calculator and the X-Teaming escape room, making the concepts more tangible.
Exactly. They're illustrative examples. The Hypersia calculator would embody the knowledge side, take complex queries, use its deep knowledge base to reason, output verified answers. You could measure accuracy, reasoning depth.
A benchmark for Hypersia's reasoning power.
Right. And the X-Teaming escape room is the security test bed. A simulated environment with challenges, flaws. An agent might try to navigate it robustly or actively try to break it, find vulnerabilities.
And you'd measure success by what? Task completion, vulnerabilities found?
Something like that, yeah. These modes aren't just illustrations. Trying to design them forces you to clarify Hypersia and X-Teaming's core functions, identify research gaps, figure out how to actually measure progress.
This has been, wow, a really deep dive into Hypersia and X-Teaming. It feels like a potential future for AI, not just smarter, but inherently more robust, maybe even self-aware about its own limits.
It's the potential synergy that's really striking, that interplay between seeking deeper knowledge and demanding rigorous security. This research agenda really maps out some fascinating and challenging directions for AI.
Totally. And wrapping up, it leaves us with some big questions, doesn't it? How do you actually build something like Kicklang, that universal cognitive gas? What are the practicalities of governing a massive red teaming UPT knowledge alt-internet?
And how do we design those operational modes, the calculator and escape room effectively, to really push the boundaries in the right way?
These are definitely the multi-million-dollar questions for future research. It feels like the journey towards this kind of AI is, well, just getting started.
It certainly is.
So just to leave our listeners with something to chew on, if AI can become its own best student and its own harshest critic, how does that change everything? What new possibilities open up? What new responsibilities do we face? This glimpse into Hypersia and X-Teaming suggests a future where AI isn't just intelligent, but maybe, just maybe, inherently more trustworthy. Definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining us on the deep dive.